grab my gear, load the truck. Heading out, don't give a truck. Rifles locked, boots tied tight. Gonna catch that deer all through the night. Hunting in the highland hill, chasing dreams and catching thrills. The wind is howling, the game is near. In the woods, our favorite place, my dear. Hunting in the highland hill.
Good afternoon, this is David T from Field Sports Scotland, and welcome to another episode of FSS Chat Back, where I come to you with all the news and all the reviews and things that I've been up to during the week and what's going on in the countryside. Now, this is my second attempt actually at doing a podcast this week. I had one made up on Wednesday night, so I'm a little bit late in publishing this one. And I had a bit of a rant. I was really ranting quite a lot. And I looked through it and I looked through it and I looked through it and I was like, I don't really like editing my podcasts whatsoever. So I tried to be as truthful and honest as possible. Truthful and honest is the exact same thing, I suppose. And I try to be as unbiased as possible when it comes to my podcasts. One of the news this week kind of upset me a little because I really think we really should be careful when we are in the countryside, whether you're a walker, rambler, whether you're a shooter, whether you're a gamekeeper, whether you're professional, whether you're not professional, doesn't matter. If you've got anything to do with the countryside, the responsibility is upon you. So this is where my kind of rant came from. So one of the news this week was a gamekeeper found a shot osprey. An osprey that was shot, most likely by somebody that legally owns a firearm. That kind of upset me because that doesn't just affect the gamekeeping community, which is a very, very tough time of year for them right now. It's very tough, full stop, right now for the gamekeeping community, both politically, commercially, and professionally at the moment because of the fact of the weather caused major problems. It's the worst grouse season there has been in 30 years in some parts, and it's a very difficult time emotionally for a lot of gamekeepers who do seem to be losing their jobs. Estate management and land management is going a different turn, and many don't have deer experience. They only have bird rearing experience or whatever. So in some places are just not suitable for the likes of pheasants and partridges in many ways. So there's been a lot of anxieties on the commercial grouse shooting, commercial gamekeeping side of things, commercial shooting side of things. And the other side of things is there's a lot of pressure in regards to the rewilding sector as well, because financing and stuff like that is becoming more and more difficult. The climate's changed very quickly over the last 3 years. Financial climate has changed very quickly over the last 3-4 years, that things that were put in place are not necessarily affordable at the moment. And that affects all of us. So when we take matters into our own hands in regards to frustrations and whatever, or you're trying to stop birds from being eaten or whatever, and you make those choices, you have to remember one bad choice affects everybody. If you shoot an osprey, and this will be somebody with a legally held firearm or shotgun, if you shoot an osprey, you're affecting an already struggling industry heavily just by your antics. Now, there is another way of looking at this, because this is a gamekeeper that found this. Has this osprey been deliberately shot to attack game licensing? It's very funny. This is happening in an area at Cairngorms where a lot of people with the licensing just come in. Now, if a keeper disregarded that and didn't want anything to do with it, and it was found by a member of the public, he would have got his license removed or at least put under review. Even if he had shot it or not shot it, he would still be in question. The questions will still be there. The questions will still be answered. Nature Scotland, the police will be investigating this. And then you have, if it has been somebody from the legitimate shooting community, then what stupidity have you got in yourself to affect other people's game licenses by shooting that bird? If you're not a professional, then you're affecting people's professional lives. And if you are a professional, you should be ashamed of yourself because you're just making life even more difficult in a difficult climate. Now, my podcast this week was going to be a different turn until all this news. The reason for my reflection over the huge rant, in fact, I was practically shouting down the microphone about this, was that even though there is protests on the ecological side, or you get protesters that are protesting for climate change, protesting against commercial grouse moors, on the opposite side, we are getting people in our community, in the shooting community. I can't really say it's our community because I'm stuck in the middle. I'm stuck in the middle of two different thoughts, two different processes. I'm stuck in the middle of being involved in rewilding, conservation, and ecological advances for climate change, as well as being a professional shooter and being for commercial shooting and recreational stalking and stuff like that. So I have a very unbiased view when it comes to, I see problems on both sides, and it's not always a one-sided problem. There is problems on both sides, and there is protesters on both sides, and they are willing to go to extremes on both sides to get their point across. And it's unfair. It's unfair on everybody because we have a reasonable right to roam in Scotland. As everybody says, we're famous for it. We can pretty much go where we want. There's 92% of the land in Scotland, probably 90% of the land in Scotland you have access to. Reasonable access without doing damage, without causing disruption, without causing problems. As soon as you go onto someone's land and stops them going about their legal business, then your right to roam is no longer there. Your right to access is no longer there. If you prevent someone who owns that land, who lives on that land, or who works on that land from doing their job, then you no longer have the right to be there. Likewise, if you go onto somebody else's property and they have a different management practice and different idea from you, and you start destroying their property, again, you have no right to be there. The problem is if this persists for a longer period of time, the government's going to have no choice to say, right, there's no right to roam anymore. And that affects the general public. That affects people who like to walk in the countryside, people who like to get away from the city and the hustle and bustle of day-to-day life and enjoy our countryside, our mountains, our moors, our rivers, etc., etc. So it affects every single person. I did say the exact same things in the previous podcast that I was about to publish, and I've got it here. It's already edited, and I thought, nah, I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to be the person who is going to have a major rant over here. So the news this week is some idiot decided to shoot an osprey in the Cairngorms, and the repercussions of that could be quite severe for whoever. It was a gamekeeper that found it, and it was a gamekeeper that took it to the shelter to get looked at, and unfortunately it had to be euthanized. It's a difficult thing to even grasp why anybody would want to do that. Second of all, on the other side of things, it has been announced that this is probably for many people, I would say the majority, this has been the worst grouse year on record in the last 30 years at least. And people go, oh, well, that's so what? It's commercial grouse keeping. It's commercial grouse shooting. No, well, actually, if it's the worst year for grouse, it's the worst year, like I said in my last podcast, it's the worst year for ground nesting birds in general. We're talking all ground nesting birds, even those ones that cannot be shot or legally shot. It has been a very difficult time. There also been changes in regards to the climate industry where banks are holding back on original plans for biodiversity and carbon capture credits, and things are moving a lot slower. I keep an eye on the financial news in regards to all this, and I think this has got a lot to do with the financial climate as a whole. The war in Ukraine, Israel, all the conflicts that are in the world, the embargoes, the Brexit. There's a lot of things all happened in a short period of time that has affected the economy. Presidential election year in the US always affects the economy. There's big turmoils over that. We've had a change of prime minister here. Again, that hasn't gone as smooth as what everybody expected to be. The new Labour government isn't actually doing anything that they promised, and in fact are realising that the state of affairs that the country is in, they're pretty much going to have to hold similar or the same policies as what the Conservative Tory government had. So it's a very difficult thing, and even the SNP in Scotland are really struggling to keep going with all the freebies that we get as Scots, free education, free prescription, that sort of stuff. And this is because the budgets have changed for Scotland as well. Is that a question for Scottish independence? Maybe not. I'm not going to get into that argument on here. What else have I been up to? Preparing for night season. I've had a bit of controversy in regards to that recently as well. I got a bit of backlash in regards to the fact that we shoot deer at night. I've had to answer a few questions, and I hope I answered them properly. It's just another tool. It's a tool that we need. It's a tool that helps with the Scottish Government's deer plan, increasing the deer culls over the next few years, and also their incentives that they've given in certain areas to promote the fact that more deer need to be culled. Culling deer out of season and at night is a very, very helpful tool. So it's something that I'm preparing for. I actually start tonight. This is Saturday, so I start after midnight on Sunday morning. So I've been prepping for that over the last week, seeing where I need to concentrate on and where I don't need to concentrate on over the next coming months. So I'll be looking to shoot quite a lot. So I've been getting equipment ready, torches, lamps, getting batteries and all that all charged up. Basically, just trying my best to be ready for this winter. I've also been out foxing, as many people have seen, and I've been out rabbiting. I did a recent video, which was quite good, on the benefits, the upsides and downsides of the 22LR. So I've catch that on YouTube, which is quite good. So I'm going to kind of follow on in regards to that video, because I had quite a few people who have sent a lot of questions and got a bit of discussion online in regards to my 22LR video. And this is not generally just about the 22LR. It's about, so I'm going to answer some of those questions in the podcast. It's about repeatable accuracy. Now, I mentioned in my video that it's impossible for the 22LR to have repeatable accuracy at certain ranges. Especially the longer you go out, the harder it is to repeatably use the same holdovers, repeatably use the same data to get a subsonic 22LR or even a supersonic 22LR to perform the exact same every trip, every day, without fail. Even if you're in conditions where completely perfect, like an indoor shooting range. The optimum range of your zero for a 22LR would be, for instance, 50 yards. For an air rifle, it might be 15 yards. For a center fire, most people zero their light rifle at 100 yards, and then they do all their data and everything from there. When you start pushing any ammunition from any rifle, for center fire, air rifle, whatever it is, any projectile, when you start pushing it out further ranges, it's repeatable. It's then when we start talking about repeatable accuracy. So, for instance, a center fire might shoot, sorry, it's very hot today. The repeatable accuracy, say, of a center fire, although you've zeroed it at, say, 100 meters or 100 yards, you could easily probably have repeatable accuracy, even in slight wind and whatever, within a couple of inches of the target, right out to 300-400 yards. It's only after that you start talking about major changes in your ammunition, major changes in your powder loads, major changes in ballistics, the type of bullet you use. You start looking at air pressure, wind direction, wind speeds, and stuff like that. On a rimfire, you're for like a 22LR, you're probably going to zero at 50 yards, but you'll start thinking about all those different variables like wind direction, humidity, bullet size, bullet weight, bullet condition, grouping size, all that. When you get further, even to 100, 150 yards. So those ranges are far closer. And we're talking very short walking distance closer. So, for instance, you could, for a 22LR, you might have a holdover of maybe 6 inches or something at 100 yards. Especially for subsonic, the low speed you'll have increased variables because of the low speed of a subsonic or a lower speed round at the closer ranges every single time. So even if you are shooting on the same day, same wind direction, same wind speed, same humidity, you might only get at 100 yards a 3 or 4 inch group. Likewise, if you go out to 200 yards, you might get the same 3 or 4 inch group, but in a different space on the board. And what we're talking about repeatable accuracy is when we talk about shooting within an MOA, which is basically at 100 yards, 1 inch target, 200 yards, 2 inch target, 300 yards, 3 inch target, and getting a group of, say, 10 rounds into the center of that target at those ranges. You cannot do that with the lower speed bullets or pellets, such as the 2.2 rimfire, because of the fact of the matter is you will never ever guarantee that you will get into a 2 inch target out of 10 rounds at 200 yards, or even a 1 inch target at 100 yards. And at 50 yards, it will probably be repeatably accurate at half an inch at 50 yards at your zero. But with a lower speed subsonic bullet, the further you go out, the harder it is to get that repeatable accuracy. And day on day, that will change. Your zero may never change at 50 yards. Your bullet will not change. The bullet weight won't change. The reaction with the bullet to the rifle won't change at your zero. But as you start pushing it beyond its limits, that's when it will always change. So you might shoot with the same, you might shoot 2 inches high off your target, off your 2 inch target at 200 yards with a 22LR, for instance. You might be off that with your first shot by 2 inches. With your second shot, you might be off 2 inches in a different direction. or you might hit. With when it comes to the next day, you could be 2 inches off again, but in a different completely direction from what you did the day before. So your day-to-day repeatable accuracy is compromised, for instance, in the 2.2 LR. With centerfire, as I said, it's a lot easier to have to fix those variables into your favor, because powder charge is more or less going to be the same round after round, especially if you reload. You're going to get the same performance up to your 350 to 400 yards range as you might get every single day. You can work your data a lot easier with a centerfire than what you can with, say, a rimfire. But as you move out to those longer ranges, again, you have to change your variables. You have to make your variables more in your favor. With rimfire, it is impossible, and I will say this straight as it comes. Rimfires are impossible because there is no quality control over the bullet, over the cartridge case itself, the brass itself, the primer, speed of ignition, and there is no quality control over the charge, as in the powder that is inside the case. It is so hard to control those little bits, those component parts off a rimfire 2.2 LR, especially the subsonic or even a supersonic one. You can't. It's impossible because the fractions, the measurements are so low, and nobody really. I think there's probably about 3 or 4 guys in the world who reload rimfire, and the equipment to do it is so expensive that it just isn't worth doing it. You probably wouldn't even be able to load that many in a short period of time either. So that's me addressed that question. I know I'm a little bit quieter. I'm a little bit calmer today because I had to kind of think about what I was doing. So another news, I've addressed that question that has created this big topic on Facebook in one of the rimfire groups. You cannot get repeatable accuracy with a 2.2 LR. And I can suggest you won't be able to do that with any rimfire, let alone a 2.2 LR, because of it's hard to quality control the components to tune to your rifle. That's the other part about that is with centerfire, you can tune your load, you can tune your cartridge, your bullet recipe, your powder recipe and everything to your rifle. You can pick and choose what powders, what bullets, stuff like that, what primer, what brass you use for the components, and you can tune it to your style of shooting or to your rifle for the optimum groups. You cannot do that with a rimfire. Whew, right, I've repeated myself like for the last 2.5 minutes. I'm going to stop now. So what else have I been up to? I've organised on Monday. I am meeting up with Toby at R. McLeod's to have a look at the Bergara 17 HMR. He's going to take it down and we're going to have a little nose about it. I'll do a little video on it as well. We were talking about a package that he's going to put together in regards to that. So I think he's going to put a whole foxing, rabbiting package with the 17 HMR Bergara. I think he's talking less than £1,000 with an older style Hick Micro Apex, Alpex on it. Which they are fantastic, by the way. The new ones are good, the 4Ks are good, but the old Alpex, I really liked them. And the fact that by the time I actually got my hands on one to play with one, they were already talking about bringing out the 4K LRF, so I didn't buy one. And then I pretty much was doing all the stuff for Arkin and DNT that I still haven't got around to buying one, but I have done a Hick Micro 4K LRF review for deer stalking, and it's on my channel, so check that out. It is a fantastic scope. The old Alpex, it was very well taken within the night vision community. Guys loved it. They actually thought it was way better than the Pulsar C50, and they are, and I mean, like, I thought it was fantastic. I put it up against the Digexes a time, and the clarity between the Digex and the Alpex was fantastic. So Toby's talked about putting this package together. Him and the Smith up at our McLeod's have Charlie. They have put out together a 17 HMR package with the older Hick Micro Alpex, and I think the whole package is going to come to around about £850. So, kid you not, that's going to be a bargain. So I'm looking forward to having a look at that and seeing how it shoots and stuff like that. It's going to be interesting. Toby is going to do most of the shooting, I think, so I'll have a bit of a look, and we'll run through the action. I'll do some videoing and stuff, videography, and we'll try and get that out. What else have I got lined up? I have trying to get, like this week, I kind of was supposed to try and get one of the ladies from the ladies deer stalking group or one of the ladies shooting groups to come on to this podcast and do a little bit of an interview, talk about their journeys and stuff like that. That's still going to happen. It's just we're trying to work out the logistics in regards to their availability with work and things like that. It is a busy time of year for a lot of ladies in the shooting community. Many have got other jobs other than just shooting, so this is kind of recreational. So that is a plan. I have, as the night seasons draw in, because that's what's going to happen over the next couple of weeks, I am going to get some foxers in, try and get a couple of ecologists in to talk about rewilding, lynxes and stuff like that. It's going to be a busy couple of months, I think, and along with my night season, which I'm going to be working flat out on as well, I'm going to be exhausted by Christmas. But thank you again for watching another one of my podcasts. I'm Davey T. This is FSS Chat Back. Happy hunting, stay safe, and I'll catch you in another episode.